So you've looked online and all you find are training programs from bodybuilders, powerlifters, and other strength sports. You know they don't suit you as a combat athlete. The volumes are typically too high, too much training frequency, and they're too rigid in their exercise selection. So what I'm gonna do for you is I'm gonna give you 3 full body strength training splits that you can use right now as a combat athlete. What I'll do is I'll break down the program each by the movement pattern, and then I'll give you an example of the movement with the sets and reps. So you can literally take this and then go do it yourself or modify it as you need. As always, check the links in the description. The free MMA and Jiu-Jitsu strength conditioning blueprint will take you through this and more for developing your own strength and conditioning routine for combat sports. So I'm gonna be on my computer here because I've got all my notes on here as always. So the first training split, one of my favorite ones, especially if you are newer to full body training or even just like an intermediate lifter, is the principle of fast to slow. And that's how we're gonna structure the days on this full body program. Now, each of these are only 2 days a week because if you're doing your martial art as your main priority and you're doing that as a competitive sport, you're not gonna be spending typically more than 2 days strength training because you have a billion other things you need to do. So let's look at this. Day 1. So we got A1. And when I say A1, this is just the exercise order. A1, A2 would be a superset. A1, B1 will be do everything A1 first, then do everything B1. So A1, jump, plyo, or throw. B1, a loaded power exercise. C1, a heavy lower body. D1, D2 superset would be upper push, upper pull. And then to finish, E1, a grip, carry, or core exercise. So let's jump to the first one. A1, I just made it really simple, box jump. You can do any other jump variation you want to do here. You can do any other plyometric or any other throw. I just made it very simple. Box jump, 3 sets of 5. Then you move on. Now this would be after your general warm up. We move on to loaded power exercise. The snatch high pull, one of my favorites. You can do a loaded jump or whatever you want to do here. 3 sets of 3. We then move on to the first heavy lower body exercise. My favorite, the hand supported split squat. You need a safety squat bar to do this. If you don't have that, back squats, front squats, searcher squats, any of these work. 2 sets of 3 a leg. You can see I've only got 2 sets. It's not that much volume, but when you're doing your warm-up sets to get to these weights and then you're hitting 2 sets hard and heavy of 3, it's more than enough to stimulate these adaptations. Now, if you were, say, very far away from a fight and strength was one of the main things you're looking to work on, you might do 3 or 4 sets here. Then we're gonna go upper push and upper pull. Now these are more what I would say, quote unquote, accessory based. So they're not gonna be your main big barbell lifts here because we did our main, I guess, heavy work as part of the lower body exercise. So this one's just dumbbell incline bench. You can do 1 arm, 2 arm, whatever. 3 sets of 6 to 8. Superset with 1 arm dumbbell row, 3 sets of 6 to 10 an arm. You can even do some kind of machine row there if you wanted as well. And then to finish, we just have a carry, a sandbag bear hug carry, 1 set for max distance. This actually covers our grip, it covers our core, and it covers our carry all in one exercise. So that's day 1. Day 2, some of it is similar, but I'm gonna give you different exercise options in them. So we start with a jump, plyo, or throw. So here I'm just doing jumping rope, 2 sets of 100. You can just go by time or however you wanna do it. You can throw a medicine ball here instead. You can even do jumping rope and some throwing. You could do both in this instance because jumping rope is not that taxing, and you could just pair it with, say, a medicine ball scoop toss. We then go into an overhead weightlifting derivative. So you see in the first day, I have emphasized or prioritized lower body. On the second day, I've emphasized upper body by moving which exercise comes first. So the overhead weightlifting derivative, I've got the push press, you can do power jerk, you can do dumbbell power jerks, lots of different options you could do here, but I like my upper body lifts typically to be more quote unquote full body. So push press 4 doubles, and then superset that with the upper body pull exercise, weighted chin up, 4 sets of 5 to 6 reps. That's just a sweet spot in my opinion. Then we then go into I guess you could say a lower body accessory. Since we did our heavy lower body in the first day, we're gonna do some kind of single leg lower body work, a staggered stance Romanian deadlift, just 3 sets of 5 to 6 a leg. And then the core grip and carry portion of this is just gonna be essentially a little circuit, barbell sit up, barbell side bend, so 2 core exercises, and then a grip exercise of a plate pinch. Do that for 3 sets, and that'll be the circuit at the end. So that would be a relatively well thought out 2-day-a-week full body strength training template, and that would be your fast to slow. Now, as you progress, you may want to advance it a little. Now, that's not to say that what you were doing before won't work anymore. If you become more well trained, it still will, but sometimes some variation can keep things interesting and can keep you engaged as well. So this one is a French contrast plus accessories. Now, you don't have to do a French contrast. I'll explain that in a sec. You could just do a complex, and I'll explain that too. So each day is going to be, again, focused on, say, a lower body and upper body, even though they're both full body days, they just have a slight emphasis. So the first day will be a lower body French contrast. The second day will be an upper body French contrast. Now, this can be complexes, and I'll explain that as I go through. So French contrast is simply 4 exercises all together. You're going to do a heavy strength movement. You're going to follow that by a bodyweight ballistic movement. You're then going to do a loaded ballistic movement and then an assisted ballistic movement. So you're kind of touching on all different points of the load velocity spectrum. So let's look at this first French contrast. Heavy lower body to start. Again, I put hand supported split squat there. Could be a back squat, could be a front squat, any kind of, it could even be a leg press in this instance. Then you move on to the next exercise, which is a bodyweight jump or plyometric. I've got split squat jump to kind of keep with that single leg theme. Two reps on each side. Don't need to do 3 because we just want to keep fatigue relatively low. Then we have a loaded ballistic movement as the third one. Now, this one I just put a jump squat at 30% 1RM. You could do a dumbbell loaded split squat jump. I just didn't want to do that all the way through because in my experience, if you do single leg work like split squats in these complexes and contrasts, you should only do one leg in a set at a time. Because if you do both, you essentially gas yourself out going through because you're trying to do both sides. So that's just in my experience with athletes I've trained. So I typically like to not have split squat variations throughout the whole thing. And if I do, you're only going to do one leg for one set, rest, and then do the other leg. So bear that in mind. The third one, low ballistic, jump squat, as I mentioned, 30% 1RM, 3 sets of 3, and then a band assisted jump. You could do this split squat, but just a band assisted jump for 3 sets of 3, and that's tying a band onto a rack. And you're going to hold the band or have it around like a backpack, and you're going to jump as high as you can. That's going to assist you by deloading body weight slightly. If you didn't want to do the French contrast, or you don't feel you're ready for that, you can literally just do the first 2 exercises. The hand supported split squat and split squat jump, that will be a complex. So you can just disregard the other 2 to keep it really simple. So you've got 2 options there. We then move into B1, which is a lower body, a posterior chain exercise. So we just did a lot of, I guess you could say, squatting movement patterns. Now we just want a little bit of a hinge. So just 2 sets of 5 to 6 of the remaining deadlift. You could do 3 depending on how you're going to schedule, but 2 sets is more than enough if you're going heavy. And then to finish, an upper body circuit. This is just going to cover essentially just some of your upper body accessories so you can get some upper body work in. For example, push-ups plus inverted rows, plus the seated shoulder external rotation for some rotator cuff work, and then a landmine rotation for some quote unquote core work. And you can just run through that circuit 3 to 5 times to get that work done. If we move on to day 2, similar layout, but for upper body. So we start with a heavy upper body push exercise. And that's going to be, in this instance, just a bench press, 3 sets of 3. We then move into a bodyweight ballistic movement. This can be an explosive push-up on the floor, or it could be a medicine ball throw in this instance too. Then we've got a loaded ballistic movement. So this could be a bench throw if you have a Smith machine or a partner, or it could be a heavy medicine ball throw, or it could be, say, a banded speed bench, but you kind of have to have 2 racks to have that set up. So with the upper body stuff, the loaded ballistic one is probably the hardest variation to have, I guess, access to with equipment, because you may need a partner or some other special equipment. I mean, you could just have a band, say, like a banded push-up and try and do explosive push-ups like that. That is another option as well. And then the fourth one, an assisted ballistic movement, would be like a band assisted explosive push-up. It could be an incline explosive push-up, so hands on the bench, or it could be, say, a light medicine ball throw, or even just like a shock method medicine ball throw where someone's dropping the medicine ball to you. So that would be your upper body French contrast or complex, depending on what you want to do. Then we have an upper body pull exercise. So this is going to be a heavier one. For this instance, since we did the rows as part of the accessory circuit the previous day, we're going to do weighted chin-ups here, 3 to 4 sets of 5 to 6. And then we finish the lower body circuit. And this is just going to cover some of the movements that we may not have gotten in the previous day. So things like lateral lunges, single leg hip thrusts, single leg calf raises, and then some abs, something like a barbell rollout. You could just run through that, 2 to 4 sets. You don't have to do as many sets as the upper body one because it's just gonna be harder to recover from, but just getting some of that work in is going to be good for you. We go on to my third split, and this is for someone who is really time crunched. Like you have 30 minutes twice a week to get a session done. This is how I'd go about it. Or I should say, this is one way I would go about it. There are multiple ways you could do it. I'll kind of elucidate on some of those too. You literally pick one main exercise. So this is heavily influenced by the old time physical culturists or the old time strongmen. This is back in the pre-steroid era, where they would often run abbreviated or ultra abbreviated training programs. And that just means they're literally doing 1 to 3 exercises, if that, a few times a week or each day. And they're just hitting that exercise damn hard. And that's all they're doing. So for example, day 1, full body exercise, something like a power clean plus push press is my favorite complex and combination. 4 sets of 2 plus 2, meaning you do 2 power cleans and then you do 2 push presses. Yes, you have to have some weightlifting background to be able to do that. So I'll give some other examples at the end of this that you can do. But then following that, you can just, if you have time, you can just do a bodyweight superset where you're trying to hit a rep target. So push-ups and inverted rows, you're gonna get 50 reps of push-ups, 50 reps of inverted rows. You're gonna complete those back and forth in the least number of sets possible. For example, you get 15 push-ups in the first set, then you get 10 inverted rows in the first set, and then you just go back and forth until you finish 50 of both. Idea is you don't go to failure on the first or any of the first sets because it makes it a lot more difficult, but you're just getting body weight volume in. Day 2, you can do a heavy lower body movement. So in this instance, a squat, 4 sets of triples, and then you can do the exact same thing, a bodyweight circuit, dips and chin-ups, 50 dips, 30 chin-ups, back and forth until you reach those rep targets. Now, if you can't do, say, the power clean and push press, you could use something really simple like a deadlift. And you could even do what a lot of people typically do is do like squat and bench on one day, deadlift and press on another day. That is another way you could do a minimalist style training program. Another option is to, say, replace these bodyweight exercises with carries. So it can be more, I guess, strongman-esque. So you might do power clean, push press, sandbag carry, and the second day you might do squat and farmer's walk. So you've got different options you can play around with in these minimal training programs. And it's okay if you're not doing everything, because what you can do is you can run something like a minimal training program for 1 to 2 months, and then you can maybe switch out some of those exercises to give you a different stimulus and give you something new to do. And that way you're not neglecting anything long-term. You're still coming back to it as you cycle things in. So if you don't have much time, it's an option you can use. So that's 3 full body splits for you as a fighter. Now, if you want to know how to fit your conditioning into something like this, make sure you check out this video next, because I go through in detail why adding something like more zone 2 potentially isn't what you need to improve your conditioning as a fighter.